Hello, I'm Morris Kohansky, Wilderness Living Skills and Survival Instructor for the Boreal Forest. Here is a DVD on shelters. Now, I hope I'm not too harsh, but when I analyze all the books on survival that I have in my possession, which is probably 3 or 4 arm spans full of bookcase, I find that if there's any subject that is rather poorly presented or rendered, it's that on shelters. Now you have to keep in mind that the shelters I'm talking about are on the boreal forest. And the balance of the shelter and the fire that's in front, or the use of a shelter to protect your sleeping bag and your gear, or to build and make do with only a shelter because you didn't bring a sleeping bag, and all of that stuff is brought into consideration. You realize that we have 2 extreme ways of conducting ourselves under survival conditions. One where we brought nothing and we depend on the forest to provide what we need. On the other extreme, we bring, like for example, sleeping bags are awfully hard to substitute for in the wilderness. So if a sleeping bag is part of your survival gear, you still need protection for the bag in a certain type of shelter that keeps it dry, and perhaps you might even find your shelter keeps away the insects and so on. If you're going to travel as lightly as possible, you have a shelter we call the super shelter, and with that, for a kilogram or so, you might find you build a very cozy type shelter, but you have to warm it with a fire, and you have to participate in the dynamics of fueling that fire. You could just crawl into a adequate enough sleeping bag, fold up, and only have to get up to go to the bathroom. But at any rate, the shelters that we might use right from scratch are the shelters that you construct, and the shelters you might consider that are totally self-sufficient are more or less what you have to consider. And here we focus on the wilderness type shelters that might be of use, derived from a lifetime of wilderness living skills instruction. Now, a shelter is one part of the big picture, and that picture is often poorly done when you try to derive useful knowledge out of the literature that we currently can buy off the bookshelves.